What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the BizDad Podcast. I am excited to have a conversation today with Brad Cornell. We've already talked on, for those of you who don't listen to the Delegate That podcast, I've got that one over there as well. Already had a good chat with Brad over on Delegate That. And now we get to go a little bit deeper and on the family side of the house over here. So Brad, really looking forward to digging deeper with you today. So if you can, go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us about your family and tell us about your business.
Thanks, Adam. I'm excited for the conversation. Yeah, where to start? I have an amazing wife of 11 years as of a couple days ago. So
happy anniversary.
Thank you. I think that was on I should know this, the 13th of July.
Awesome.
Yep, got to remember that. I feel like I'm getting to the place in the number of years now where it's like I'm trying to remember the actual date. So Thank God for Google Calendar and reminders, but we have two beautiful little girls, a 5-year-old and a 1.5-year-old, and are just about to start working on number 3 here. So
nice.
The season of life we're in, we live in Minnesota, and we run 2 companies. One is exterior lot maintenance, kind of a lot maintenance, parking lot sweeping and maintenance company out in Idaho. So that's out of state for us. And then we also have a real estate investment company as well.
Welcome to the BizDad Podcast, where we dive into the melding of fathership and entrepreneurship with your host, the original BizDad himself, Adam Llenroc. Adam is a Christian, a former Air Force officer, a dad to 3 amazing kids, a coach, a real estate investor, and a business owner. On this podcast, he'll explore the unique journeys of amazing dads who are striving for greatness in both business and family. So whether you're a dad who is an aspiring entrepreneur, a seasoned business owner, or simply a man striving to be a better dad, get ready as the BizDad brings you conversations to inspire, challenge, and equip you to be a better dad and entrepreneur. And now, here's Adam.
I know we talked a lot about the lot maintenance one on the Delegate That, but I'm looking forward to asking some more questions here. So some of it may be repeat, but we're going to enjoy it nonetheless.
It's all good.
So as I mentioned, I always like to ask about people's upbringing and kind of where they came from and where they got their start in life. So I'd love to do a bit of a rewind and understand who Brad was growing up, about your parents, about especially your dad, what kind of influence he was or was not in your life, whatever the case may be. So let's kind of just rewind a little bit. Tell me what that was like for you.
Geez, there's a lot to go there. I mean, I grew up in the country in a little tiny town in Minnesota, and so kind of had that non-farmer related like country grow up, but like just kind of my dad worked at IBM in a management position there, but it was really important to my parents. I guess I couldn't tell you why, but it was important for them to have us out in the country. So they bought like 3 acres out in the country and built a house out there. And that's where I spent my whole childhood up through high school and into college. They had that house. And so spent a lot of time outside, spent a lot of time digging holes and cutting down trees and building forts. And all my friends were farm kids growing up, which, is an amazing thing to have exposure to from a work ethic and life experience standpoint. And my dad was very handy too. So I got to get my hands dirty a lot on house projects and landscaping and all the things. I have 2 other brothers, neither of which took a liking for any of that stuff. So my dad and I were kind of buddies for probably the kind of, I guess, like the first half of my time at home, and followed him around and did projects and fixed stuff. And he was very much a DIY guy. And I got to glean a lot of those same skills, a lot of that same work ethic. My parents always tell me I have an engineering mind. So naturally I went to school for engineering, and he did too. So that was kind of the zoomed out version of my childhood. I was very into like hunting and fishing and trapping, and I was very much a phase kind of guy. So I would get really obsessed about a hobby and then go all in on that hobby and then master it and then move on to the next hobby. And my dad was involved in some of those hobbies, maybe like earlier on, and then became kind of more disconnected as time went on. He was busy with his career, and there's 3 of us boys, causing chaos in the house, and that expended a lot of his
boys never cause chaos in the house. I don't know what you're talking about.
I mean, I didn't. But,
doesn't happen. Yeah, I would imagine not. Yeah. So, I know my 2 boys never cause chaos. Yeah. So
they don't have any energy. All they do is sleep. So
I was out working on my truck yesterday, which I can't wait to sell. I bought that thing because I knew it was going to last forever, and I've been working on it since I bought it. But so I'm out there working on it, and then I look over, and both the boys are up in a tree eating a popsicle, like hanging upside down type of stuff. A little while later, a neighbor kid comes over, and they lose the remote control car inside of the drainage pipe underneath our driveway. So they're like trying to dig underneath there, and you just never know. Neighbors' kids came over one time, and they're like, "Hey, we lost the ball on the roof." So they throw my 10-year-old up on the roof to go get it. So he goes up on the roof and gets the ball. It just is nonstop with this. With the boys,
it's different with boys. Like when you have girls, it's so different with girls. I mean, I don't have any boys yet, but I know how my child was with 2 brothers. So it's us 3 boys, and it's all the things you described and more. Crazy crap that we would come up with. And my girls come up with stuff, but not like that.
Yeah, like my daughter's more likely to grab a baby and night and put it on her chest and walk around. And it's like the boys. My son was pushing my 2-year-old on the 2-year-old little girl on the swing outside, and she had brought her baby doll out, and so he was testing the strength of the baby doll's head against the swing set, And I'm they're so different from each other. It's hilarious to watch.
Always testing boundaries. I will say though, my 5-year-old. There's a big hill in our backyard. She pulled out the I don't know the exact name for them, but it's like a dolly for moving stacks of boxes. You stick it under and tilt it back. You move a fridge with it. She somehow pulled that out of the garage, lined it up on the hill, sat on top of it, and was riding it down.
That's awesome. That's good.
Go girl.
That's good. We need that. We need that in today's day and age. Hey everybody, wanted to step in to discuss something. If you're anything like me, you've ran into some time in your business where you feel a little overwhelmed with some of the mundane tasks that eat up your valuable time. You're working more in the business than you are on the business, right? If that's you and you're hearing this and you're saying, boy, it is time to reclaim some of my schedule back, to focus on what truly matters. You want to get time back with elite remote talent with 0 time zone hassle. Check out one of my partners that I just recently partnered up with, BizDad&x.com/Adam is where you go to check these folks out. Delegate $10 an hour tasks to focus more on the $1,000 an hour tasks, the things that are really transforming your business. Get rid of some of those transactional things and do some more of the transformational inside of your business. So again, schedule your free strategy call at wisevas.com/Adam. Wise, WISEVAS.com/Adam. Again, let's get rid of some of those transactional tasks and move them into transformational tasks. It's been a phenomenal team to work with. I really look forward to sharing them with you. If you have any questions, please reach out to me. I'll be happy to discuss with you what's going on as well. But again, wisevas.com/Adam. Thank you very much. And now back to the episode. It's one of those, I saw a video recently, I don't remember what it was, but it was how come we don't see kids in casts anymore? When we were kids, it was just so normal to see a kid in a cast. They fall out of a tree, they're playing on the playground. Where are the casts? My son's already had 2 casts or just one? Just one cast. He broke his foot. Yep. But anyways, I love all of this stuff. That needs to happen. We need to get out there and explore. Totally. But since you were obviously one that got out there and explored, so you had a dad who was an engineer, and when you think usually engineer, you don't necessarily think a bunch of outdoorsy type of stuff. So how did that? What was his upbringing kind of like that led him to say, "Hey, let's do country and outdoor stuff and be handy"?
I wish I could tell you that. It makes me think I need to ask him that question, why did we, why did they raise us in the country? I have no idea. He grew up in town. His dad was a car dealership owner, a Ford dealer owner, so he's a diehard Ford guy and whatever. But I think too, like me, when I went into college, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And I kind of got pushed into the engineering space, and I think maybe it was the same for him. We actually him and I went to the same college. So
nice.
But he he's very much so like an outgoing social kind of guy, almost more than an engineering mind that you'd normally think. Like you think more like stereotypical, technical, like a little less social. He's like, and that season of life, he was very outgoing and bubbly and social and stuff, but not into outdoorsy stuff at all, though. That was purely me. I was the one that was into the outdoorsy stuff. Nobody else in my family got into that. And I think my uncle was the one that was kind of into that stuff, and that got me a little bit interested. And so I just kind of took it from there with my obsessive drill down on mastering certain hobbies, and got really into certain things and then phased out of it. But yeah, he wasn't super involved in my hobbies growing up. He wasn't discouraging by any means, but certainly wasn't like, hey, let's go do this together in a really intentional, proactive way. But supportive, and thought it was cool that I was doing it, but didn't want to spend a whole lot of time doing it with me per se.
Gotcha. Did he travel a lot for his job, or not really?
No, not really. Well, I shouldn't say that. Early on, he did, and then as we got older, it was less and less and less. I don't remember him leaving like hardly at all, but I know earlier on in his career, maybe even before kids, he would fly around for IBM and stuff. He was with IBM for like 25 years.
Gotcha. All right.
So he was always present. Yeah.
Do you still have a good relationship with your parents?
I mean, good is a relevant term when you become an adult.
Yeah, true story.
I think it's as healthy as it can be for how healthy they are, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I can try to pull that a little bit maybe later.
A little cryptic. I mean, there's a lot that goes into that, but I mean, unfortunately, it's an interesting thing. You become an adult and then you become a parent, and now you are still the child of your parents, but you're also a parent, and you're observing 3 stages of life there.
Yes.
Instead of just looking forward, you're also looking back at your children. And, it's interesting because like we're very much so in like a growth oriented phase of life, and we're growth oriented people in general. That's why we own businesses and real estate, and like we're very intentional with our kids, and like we have this growth path that we're always planning and talking about, and both logistically and financially, but also like personal, right? Like we're always personally pushing growth. Like, how do I become more self-aware? How do I grow spiritually? How do I grow my relationship with my wife and my kids and be a better version of myself? And I've noticed a pattern. Maybe you've seen it too. It seems like, unfortunately, a lot of people who fall into that like later stage of life, grandparent phase, like they maybe were on a growth and then they just kind of plateau, and then kind of dip. Some of them, unfortunately, kind of dip down in terms of just what they're interested in, their ability to have quality conversations, or there's a lot to be said on that. Like a lot of circular conversations, or like the same 10 topics are the topics that we talk about with that group of people, versus like what's new, like where are you traveling next, like tell me about where you're growing, like what's a challenge you're working on, like that's the season of life we're in. So interesting to be in that middle phase, looking at where they're at, looking at where our kids are at and where we're at, and like because it's so dramatically different where we're growing and they're kind of going like this a little bit, it's hard to, I think personally, it's really hard for me to have deep relationships with people that aren't growing. So
and I think that's kind of normal for like peer relationships. Does that be something that I would challenge you a little bit as far as like parental or older folk relationships? That it's our job to be able to kind of look at that and say, how do I? Maybe it's something that we say, how do I prevent myself from staying inside of a bubble later on and not have that downfall? So having those conversations, like, tell me about the things you do. Tell me how you got to where you are, and trying to understand where they're at. Like right now, I look at my dad, and I've never seen him as active as he is right now. He's retired, living in a golf community, but he worked 26 years as a correction officer, 15 years in the Air Force before that. And it was just work all the time. He was miserable. I never saw him happy for any length of time. And now he's retired and he's on the golf course, 3-4 times a week, 5 times a week.
Yep.
And he's just constantly I feel like he's in a better place now. And I'm trying to analyze, okay, what does that mean for me? How do I look at that and go, maybe I want to, sacrifice more now to have more later, or maybe I want to not sacrifice at all now so that I can, be, I don't know. Right. It's just, it helps me kind of think through things differently than where I am.
Absolutely. And I think it's a fair assessment. It's interesting because I know couples. I mean, I know a couple that is in their early 70s, similar golf course community, some of the most active people of that age group probably the most active people I know in that age group. And they're full of energy, they're exercise, they're playing golf 3 days a week, they're traveling, they're doing all this stuff. And I try to decipher that, I look at my parents and then I look at them. My parents are younger than this couple who are in their early 70s. My parents are early 60s, mid 60s. I'm like, okay, where did that derail? Where now, this older couple who's golfing all the time is still kind of on that growth pattern. They're still interesting, they still have energy, they're still running around and doing all of the things. Whereas my parents, you look at their life and it's just kind of consistent. It's consistent. And I'm not sure it's a right or wrong. It's not a discussion of right or wrong.
Yep.
Obviously, we all have our own choice to how do you want to live your life and finish out your life. But I wonder that where what happens in that is it when you go to empty nester and that transition you're phasing out of your career, out of parenting, there was so much focus on that they lose. There's not a graceful transition into that next interesting thing, and they become lost and life just becomes static. I don't know, but that terrifies me to think about repeating that. And frankly, I hope and pray that doesn't happen, but I also think so much of that has to do with who you surround yourself with, right?
Yes.
They, contrasting again, group A has lots of friends, they golf with them, they travel with them, they're being drawn out and forward and into activity through social interaction and relationship. Whereas my parents are more isolated, live in a super tiny town, don't have a whole lot of friends. So there's no draw to pull them out of their house or into activities or into new things or go to a movie or a new restaurant or whatever. So environment is just, I think, is critical in that, especially maybe around those transition periods.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that the fact that it terrifies you, that may happen to you, is part of the reason why you almost keep yourself a little distant?
Distant or busy?
Well, maybe both. Distant from your parents, right? Because it sounds like, I'm not saying you're actually distant from your parents. I'm just saying that it sounds like you're kind of they're in a different stage. I'm staying focused over here. Are you kind of putting them in the category of people I don't want to hang out with because you're afraid that you're going to turn? You see that as being a potential, as opposed to saying, hey, my parents are in a different spot and I want to just go and spend some time with them and have the grandparents around for the kids.
Yeah. I think that's an interesting observation. I wouldn't say it's exactly as you described. I'd say more. So we're not super, super close to my parents. We're way closer to my wife's parents. And it's purely because of those things I was describing earlier. Her parents have friends, activities. Her dad's a birder. They travel, all this stuff. So it's when you get together, it's tell me what's new. Have a good conversation. They ask about what's new with us and what we're doing. They're really involved in our kids' lives. Contrastingly, seeing my parents feels more draining because there are very few questions asked, and the conversations that are had are, again, those circular same 10 topics. So occasionally we'll bring it up in the car, jokingly, kind of passively, hey, what do you think the chances are mom's going to bring this up? It's just it's inevitable. Tell, what do you think? You think she's going to tell this story? Or Genevieve is going to say this thing and that's going to prompt mom to tell this story, which we've heard 5,000 times before from 15 years ago in the glory days. And so it
sounds like my dad. Hopefully he's listening to this. And this is my dad for sure. That's
I mean... All that to say, disclaimer, I love my parents dearly and I'm so grateful for for their role in my life. I mean, I wouldn't be who I am or be where I'm at without everything that they've done. Yeah. That said, adult to adult relationship has been challenging because of some of those factors. It's like, I would love to have a deeper, closer relationship, but are they capable of the factors required to have that depth? Right.
Yeah.
And you can't force that upon people. And that's really discouraging. Right. You know, like, it's like, wow, they're my parents. Like, I've known them 34 years and they did all this stuff for me. But I feel capped on the depth of relationship that I can actually have because of XYZ factors and their mental health and where they're at personally. You know, it's limited by, because it takes two people to have a good relationship, you know.
Yeah. For sure.
If it's not growing, it's dying, and sometimes it feels like it's dying, and it's like there's some soberness in that, especially when we have close relationships with other couples that are way older and in that same season of life, and you see that contrast. And it's like there's definitely a sadness associated with it. So, you know, regretfully, we don't. I don't know if regretfully is the right word. Unfortunately, we don't spend a lot of time with them because it's when you're busy and you have kids and businesses, it's like you only have so much time to split, and it's hard internally to not run the ROI analysis on time spent socially in those situations. So it's a tough deal. It's something that I spend a lot of time thinking about and feeling bad about, but not really knowing how to solve or come to terms with. So
yeah, I understand. Yeah, it's I remember. So I'm getting ready to fly out on Sunday as we're recording this to go to a funeral of one of my previous coworkers / bosses. And I remember when he lost his. We talked about his family a lot. I mean, we worked together for 3 years in Japan and another year in the States. So we were together for 4 years, going on a lot of different things together, doing all sorts of stuff. And he just passed away of a heart attack in his late 50s, right? 57 years old. And at least I think it's a heart attack. I haven't got the official everything, but just that's what it sounds like. And so I guess, you know, part of me is in a different state of mind right now as I'm asking some of these questions of, okay, well, I remember when his parents passed away, some of the things he talked about, because he was in Japan when his mom passed, and you know, me having to take over the unit and him going to do his thing and him coming back and like just trying to see, like, I knew that their relationship was strained, and now it's like, boy, what does it look like for me as I'm growing older? How do I make sure that I'm, you know, staying in as close of a relationship as I can with my parents? Because thankfully, I mean, I only live, you know, half an hour from them, so it helps out for me to be able to actually see them. But so forgive me for digging a little deep. It's just in my brain right now to try to go, okay, well, how do I understand where I'm at, and how do I understand where my parents are at, and, you know, analyze that thought process as I keep going through it. But
absolutely.
All I know is that go ahead.
The best we do is invest the time, because you know, I've never heard anybody say, you know, my parents died and I spent too much time with them in their last 10 years of their life. Like, nobody says that. You know, if anything, it's always the extreme opposite. Like, I should have spent more time. And I forget who it is. I want to say Tim Ferriss, but I don't think it's Tim Ferriss. Who is it? Who was it? The Quest guy. Quest Nutrition. What's his name? Everybody knows who it is. Anyway, I think it's him. Yes, he talks about like quantifying. I think it was him who talks about quantifying, like how many times a year do you see your parents? He's like twice a year. He's like, how many more years are they going to live? Like 10 years. Okay, so you're going to see your parents 20 more times before they die.
Yeah.
And he's like, that'll sober you up really fast.
Yeah.
Or like if you see them once a year and they're only going to live 10 more years, that means you have 10 more interactions with your parents. Yeah. And that's like, oh, wow.
Yeah. I try to think about that with both my parents and my sisters, right? So like at the beginning of last year, my wife and I sat down and we said, all right, well, let's hit it. Like, we want to see, you know, cousins this many times, like the kids' cousins, like, my sisters, her nieces and nephews, like how often can we get the cousins together this many times in a year? How often can we see our parents this many times in a year to increase that amount? So like, let's make it an intentional part of our goal for this year, to go and do it. Right. So, it's definitely, and my wife's dad passed away suddenly from a fall at work. So it was one of those that slapped us in the face too. Like if we look back at it and go, how do you can't prevent when that happens. So how do we keep the relationship at a point to where, we're never burning a bridge. We're not, we're leaving on good terms. We're seeing each other when we can. And my wife always talks about this time where she, like her dad was up visiting. So they live here in Florida. And she was, we were living in Georgia at the time. So it's like a 4-hour drive, up to the house, 2-hour drive up to the house. So he was up visiting and was like, "Hey, I want sushi." And, her mom was like, "No, like it's always expensive." And my wife was like, "No, like he wants sushi. Let's get daggum sushi." And it wasn't too long after that, he passed away. And that always stuck in her head as like this, don't lose the moment because of any number of reasons, which is one of the reasons I look at business and I'm like, man, if I can grow this as big as I can, then it won't ever matter. I will never say like, "Oh, we can't have sushi today because like it just doesn't make sense to spend that much." No, you want daggum sushi? Like the other day we just ordered sushi. We were at a friend's house and they were like, "Oh yeah, we like sushi." I was like, "So all right, let me order 5 more rolls." So I just ordered a bunch more, had it all delivered, and I was like, I don't like, this is something that we all want and love as a family. Like we spent 3 years in Japan. Like that's we're big sushi fans. But I look at it and go like, how I don't know when that moment is going to be where my parents go. I don't know when that moment is going to be when I go, when my kids go, when my wife, hopefully my kids long after me, right? But you never know. So take advantage of the moments we have now. So.
I love that. I completely agree. And that's as we've, as our income has gone up because of business and real estate and stuff like that, that's become, for both Lauren and I, really big focus is just like, how do we create experiences for people that they'd never be able to have on their own or wouldn't choose to take on their own because of finances? And it's like, we have the discretionary spend to make that happen through the hard work we put in and what we built. But that is one of the blessings and benefits of it is we can create those moments. And like we come down to Florida every year for a couple months. And like last year we brought my parents down for like 8 days. And it's like, was that the most socially recharging activity we did while we were down there? No. But are we glad that we did it? Yes, absolutely. Because we created those memories. We created that experience for them and for us and for our girls. And it's hard to put prices on that. And it's
for
a
sure
blessing and a luxury to be able to do that for people and make that happen.
Yeah, so that was going to be something I was going to say, and then you said that you're doing it, but it's like, well, maybe take your parents on those adventures and give them those adventures to talk about. So the next time you talk to them, they tell a story about that adventure instead of one from 15 years ago.
I know, exactly. Exactly. Like you start manipulating and controlling the.
Let's make this happen. Yeah, we just went back up to New York for my niece and nephew's graduation. And we went and played at a golf course that we'd played a lot when my dad had played a lot. I don't remember ever playing it. I may have. I don't remember. But so we're on this golf course. And then sure enough, he tells the story that happened on this golf course, on this tee that I'd heard 17 times. And now I'm standing here watching. It's like, oh, yeah, this rock and the ball hit there and it landed right back in front. I was like, oh, here we go again. But it's the same thing. But it's like, this is a new adventure. Like, let's go have it. Let's go have some fun.
And I wonder, as you're saying that, I wonder if the retelling of those stories is to fill the void of new stories being created.
Could be.
Yeah, I wonder that. Like if people in that stage of life were creating new memories that were really exciting, I don't know. That just like popped into my head. I wonder if that's the scenario. I don't know.
That makes me curious because I look at, I was a military guy for a long time. The military guys, when they get together, have a tendency to tell a lot of military stories. Like those are their, and I don't do that as much because I'm tend to live in where I'm at today and where I'm growing to, like you said, right? So I don't go back to those stories, and I never pieced it together. Like the way that you said that makes me kind of go, oh, there's a possibility that that's what it is. Like those were those were their times. Like those were when they had all their stories. And sure, I've got loads of them. I can talk about all sorts of stuff: Iraq, Afghanistan, Thailand, Africa, all over the world, doing all sorts of crazy stuff. But man, I'm in such a different place in my life. Like I've got 3 kids that I'm trying to raise to be amazing, productive members of society that love God, that are, motivated to do things. And I'm trying to grow business, and I'm looking at all this stuff. And it's like, those are the stories I want to tell. This is what I'm growing towards. I mean, that is curious. I wonder if that's what it is. I mean, you're going back to the glory days, like why can't your glory days be tomorrow instead of yesterday?
But it's also, probably ties back to like that growth oriented nature. Are you a forward thinking person, or are you a backwards thinking person? Some people just seem to thrive thinking about and living in the past, whereas I've struggled for years really contextualizing and having gratitude for my past. Like in ways for a lot of years I kind of like didn't want to think about my past, even though none of it was like terrible. Like it was productive and I was doing stuff, but I almost like discarded the past for the sake of solely focusing on the future and moving forward and what could be, which I've since come to find out is also not overly healthy. So I tried to find the more middle ground of being present. But I wonder if that's the thing too. It's just like people who are fixated on past stories are just past oriented thinking people, and they're not forward thinking. They're not the pioneers. They're not the ideation people. They're not thinking of new adventures and creation and building. So everybody's wired a little different, but I find, I think we mentioned in the other podcasts, I'm in Go Abundance, and like that, those are my people because I think we're all geared that way. And so it's really easy to have conversations with people that are geared that way, even if it's not business. But you can find people that aren't in business, aren't in real estate, but they're still geared that way, and they're really interesting to talk to because there's always something interesting and new that's developing, that they're growing, whether it's traveling or their job or a hobby or whatever. So those are my people.
I think we look at our past as something that helps us contextualize our future more than we look at our past that contextualizes our life. Like what did the past teach me to go to tomorrow?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So what you did yesterday got you to where you are today, but what did it teach you that can get you to a better tomorrow? So instead of just telling the stories about how great it was then.
Because there's always another goalpost out there, right? And that drives so much purpose. Going back to my parents, like I see that in, post. For my dad, it was really post-career. He had that really, really ugly career exit where it was like in that 08, 09 phase, and IBM like cut all the managers and whatever. I think he was at like 24 years and was about to get like the pension thing and like whatever, and they like slashed him. No pension, none of that stuff. Like none of those like 25-year benefits that he's like spent all this time. And so he went through a huge identity crisis, and like his level of drive plummeted. Because growing up, I'd always seen him like he's a very driven person, but then, that happened, and now it's like there was no purpose anymore. And similarly, I think happened with my mom when all of us kids were out of the house. It's like her purpose for the last 25 years is now gone. And there was nothing teed up ready to take that place and fill that void. And I think that was true for both of them. And I'm not sure they've ever really rediscovered that next goalpost that's driven purpose, which drives action and excitement and forward movement. So again, it just creates this stagnant, consistent, like not much has changed in the last 10 years kind of a vibe. Okay. So it's hard to relate. It's really, really hard to relate, and it's painful relationally sometimes, for sure.
So you said a key thing in there that I want to pull some strings on is identity crisis, right? So what does that tell you about where you want to be, about where do you personally, you and your wife and what are you teaching your kids about where you hold your identity? What does that mean to you guys as a family?
Yeah. I mean, first and foremost, like we're believers, so identity for us very much so falls in line with the Bible and our identity in Christ. And so that's like the top layer for everything that we build our filters for in terms of identity. Who we are and what we do is very much so filtered through that. Beyond that, things like being growth oriented and being self-aware and productive members of society are really key for us. Highly intentional people, like relationally focused, are some of the big core values for our family and how we do life. Like stewardship is a very, very big thing for us. We talk about stewardship every single day with our kids, because it's very different telling your kid to pick up their shoes because you want them to versus stewardship wants you to.
Mm-hmm.
We pick up our shoes because it's good stewardship, not because mom and dad want a clean house.
Yeah.
And that's just, it's different, right? Like one is authoritative and like, oh, I have to do it because mom and dad want me to. Another one is like a driving core principle that governs them. So, you know, our identity really falls in those categories, and we talk about those things all the time. Like, how are we all growing? Where are we going next? And there's always a purpose behind it. And I think maintaining purpose and vision is so important. You know, my wife and I started doing like a 5-year vision probably like 10 years ago. And we've done like, we're just working on our 3rd iteration now.
Love it.
And that, because we've basically achieved everything in those 2 prior 5-year visions. We're eclipsing one, or one's coming to an end here in the next 2 years, but we're basically already done with everything that was on there. And it's like, when you set that purpose and that vision, and it doesn't take that much time, but it takes some intentionality.
Yeah.
And we've found that, I don't know, beyond like the two most important skills I've found personally in my life, and I don't know where they came from, but Lauren has them as well. One is self-awareness and one is intentionality. Like if you can be self-aware and intentional, I think you will go so much further in life and have a much happier, more productive life and relationships forever.
Yeah.
But like if you're not self-aware, you can't self-correct, which means it's really hard for you to grow. And if you're not intentional about self-correcting and growing, you just like kind of stay stagnant. And like reflecting back on my parents, like their self-awareness score and intentionality score isn't optimal, I wouldn't say. Somehow I ended up with those skills, and I'm so grateful for it. And Lauren did too. And I think that's why we ended up together. So like we spend so much time talking to our kids about that as well. And like, that's such a driving force for us, is like, we want to be intentional people and super self-aware people so we can have high quality relationships and live our life with purpose and intention versus just like coasting. And I think our hope for our kids as we live that out is that they'll emulate that, and those core principles as a family will carry us all forward. Yeah. And in ways like build this like social family accountability structure where we're all, that's part of the culture of our family. So that way, hopefully that just carries everybody forward. But also like if somebody is kind of fallen off, like there's just this family culture of like, we grow, we're a family that grows. We're a family that explores and has adventures. We're a family that, you know, is super intentional in our relationships and are committed to being self-aware. So that way we can have those healthy relationships and so on and so forth. So, but I mean, I think that's the best we've been able to come up with, like, how do we prevent being in that position? And I think that's really important. Also, you know, again, surrounding yourself with people that are, somebody said it, labeled it something a couple of days ago, like the rule of thirds or something, but like 30% of the people you interact with or are friends with should be ahead of you. 30% should be, or 33% or whatever, should be same season or same level. And then 30% should be below that you're pulling up. You know, that's like another thing we talk about is like, are we spending too much time with people at our level or below us where we're not getting that pull upwards? And it's not a social status thing or whatever. It's just like we value growth.
Yes.
And that's part of growth, is like being pulled up by others. So hopefully the combination of all that stuff, like at least lays a better foundation, or I shouldn't even say a better foundation. I'm also a believer that like every generation should get better.
Yes.
Because, like your parents built a foundation, whether you like the foundation or not. There was some foundation that they laid that you don't have to create, that you get to step up onto, and then step up to the new you're stepping up to a new level because of the step that they built for you. And so our part in that is observing what we did in our childhoods and building on top of that, not destroying it and starting from scratch, but how do we step up on that and build on top of that? And I think that those are some core ideas and principles for us to do that.
So, I obviously had started this asking you about the identity side of the house. And what I love is that, military members have a tendency to hold their identity in their uniform, right? Yeah. Like, this is who I am. Oh, I'm a soldier. I'm a airman. I'm a whatever. And then we end up with 22 veterans a day committing suicide, right? Because they're gone. They've lost their identity. They don't know who it is. And I look at the family side of the house and I think to myself, why do we have so many divorces after the kids leave the house? Yeah. Well, because mom and dad had their identity in being parents as opposed to being husband and wife, and doing this together. So, I always talk to my kids about, my priorities in life. And I've said it probably 100 times on this podcast is, it goes my God, my wife, then my kids, and then everything else after that. Right. So, if I screw up my relationship with God, then my relationship with my wife is going to be jacked up. If I screw up my relationship with my wife, then my relationship with my kids is going to be jacked up. Absolutely. And by my relationship with my kids, I may be way closer to my kids by neglecting my wife. Absolutely. But what's going to happen when my kids are gone, right? Because they are out of the house, and then I'm still with my wife. So then what do we do, right? Yeah. Are we in it for the kids at that point? Because if we held their identity in the fact that we're husband and wife living this life together, glorifying God and raising these amazing kids, that we could watch them grow and be out of our house, and then enjoy watching them raise grandkids, still as husband and wife, helping the identity is not in our job. The identity is not in any of that stuff. If your identity is in something that can change at the whim, then you're in a rough spot, right? Because your job can change in a heartbeat. I got a phone call from somebody really close to me yesterday about a job that disappeared after 24 years. And it's like, wow, like just similar to what your dad went through. And it's like, what can you do? But now that person feels so much better today after a good conversation with me, not because I'm like this expert in all this stuff, but I've got a ridiculous amount of experience for a 40-year-old in all sorts of different phases in life. That it's like, hey, like none of this matters. It's like in business stuff, I look at it like, ain't nobody getting shot at today. Like, like I'm not worried about it. Nobody's dying today. Like, what are we doing? Like, who cares? We can make this. Okay, we lost a property. Okay, no big deal. Right? Like, it sucks. Sure. Like, it's devastating. It hurts. But ain't nobody dying today. Like, it's okay. We can make it through this.
That's amazing perspective that only somebody in your position would have, for sure. A little bit jealous of that, because that would probably pull my stress levels down on different business stuff. But no, to that point, something what that reminded me of is something we said to ourselves and committed to each other when we first had our first child. We were very adamant in forcing our thinking to stay aligned to their coming into our life. We're not going into their life.
Yes.
And what I mean by that is we're going to keep being us. We're going to keep prioritizing God in our marriage and continuing to be growth oriented and do business and travel. Because that was like a common thing that people would say, it's so always blows my mind. Like when you come up to the biggest, most poignant moments of your young adult life, like get married and have babies specifically, it's amazing how much crap people will say to you on your way to those. It's like, oh, you're getting married, like get ready to and all the negative slurs about marriage follow that. Same thing with having kids. Like, oh, you're going to have kids. say goodbye to all that traveling that you guys like to do. And it's like, and that's where that, I think it was, I don't know, Lauren and I are a little bit rebellious in the sense that like we don't like people telling us what to do. We have a problem with authority. And so it's like, okay, watch this. Like they're coming into our life. We're not going in their life. We're still going to travel. We're still going to do all this stuff.
Oh yeah, you say that now. Just wait. You'll find out. You'll find out.
Okay. Yeah. Yes, like, I think we will.
The haters hate, and that's what they do best. But we've still traveled. We've turned and people are amazed. And it's not it's not because we're amazing. It's just like we decided on the front end that we're not going to be pulled into that lifestyle of like our kids are going to control our life. Mm-hmm. We're still having our life and going where we want to go and do what we want to do. Maybe more complex. We may have to solve bigger problems, but we're not afraid of solving problems. Yeah. And when you're not afraid of solving problems, you can kind of do anything. It's like, we'll just make our kids great travelers. And we've done that. Now they're excellent travelers. Like they know the process. Genevieve loves going to the airport. She has her bag. She knows the process. She knows security. She goes through TSA like a pro. And it's like, we just solved the problem, Yeah. But they came into our life for the sake of us continuing to be able to prioritize what's important, which, like you said, I completely agree. Like God first, then marriage, then kids, then everybody else. And if those are out of order, it doesn't take long for crap to hit the fan and things to go crazy relationally, right? So I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah, and that's where, I've talked to a lot of folks about, sometimes you do have to, and as painful as it is, not hang out with your parents as much, right? Yeah. And that's okay, right? Because your priority is now not them. And if they are bringing you down, then, they're still your family, they're still your parents. You still want to love them. You still want to be there. Go for it. But it's one of those things that I've told my mom. I told my mom before when I first wanted to buy real estate. We're talking back in the 2013, 2014, something like that. I told my mom, I was like, I'm going to buy apartment buildings. And she laughed at me. And I told her, I said, if you ever laugh at one of my thoughts like that again, I'm never going to share them with you. I'm just not going to do it because I don't need that. And she's like, you're absolutely right. I won't ever do that to you again. I'm sorry. And I was like, well, thank God she reacted that way, first off.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. But second, it was like, those are the things where you have to guard where you're trying to go in life, and if somebody's laughing at where you're trying to go in life, then that's not a person you need to share your goals with. Right. I don't remember where I'm going to butcher it because I don't remember exactly who it was or when it was, but it was basically like, don't share your goals and dreams with somebody who's not going to cheer you on, type of thing. When you get there, even right. Because there are a lot of people that will cheer you on right up until you succeed at it, and then they realize that you've surpassed them, and then they're like trying to tear you down. You want the person that's going to continue to cheer you on, and that goes to a comment that I wanted to make about your third thing. It was like you made a point and you said it, and I want to make sure I'm stopping on it. Is that third that are quote unquote below you, right? You're dragging them up. But if you're in that group of those third who are quote unquote below you, a lot of those people may try to drag you down as well. So make sure you're with the right third that are below you as well. So, and
I think a nuance within that category that I've identified is find people that are maybe below is not the right term, but they're trying to get up to where you're at. And so
where you were
there's
yesterday.
a delineation in that category. There's the people that are legitimately like dragging you down and pessimists and whatever. The people I think about in that category are the people that are hungry, that want to grow, that are interested, but they're like 10 years younger than you or fiscally 10 years behind you. But they're interested and they have that hunger and they're curious and they're, again, growth oriented. I think if you're a growth oriented person, yes, the third, I think is still a key principle, but all those people generally should be growth oriented still.
Yeah, for sure. Yes.
Spending time with non-growth oriented people on a very regular basis is not, I don't think, overly healthy if that's the majority of the type of people you hang out with. If you want to like actually go somewhere. And again, it's not a right or wrong. It's just people's choices, and you get to decide where you want to go in life. But if you want to grow and you want to excel in business and in growing your family and making those little human beings as successful and productive as they can be. And when I say successful, I don't just mean monetarily. I mean relationally successful, socially successful, in their career, in their marriage, them being able to raise amazing kids. Like,
yep.
That's really, really important. So
yeah, agreed.
Whatever that's worth. There you go.
All right, so let's kind of shift gears a tiny bit here and go into you went to college to be an engineer, but yet you're a business owner and real estate investor. So talk to me about the engineer side of the house. What did you do? Well, I'm assuming you chose engineering because that's kind of what you had that engineering brain. You were pushed that direction by your parents. Yeah. What was that shift in your decision making as an adult after college? How did you kind of change your mind on what you wanted to do?
I feel like from birth, God wired me to be more contrarian in just nature and have a problem with authority. And so, the classic example I think I always tell people is like, while everybody else in high school went to go work at Dairy Queen, I was like, screw that. I'm going to go start my own landscaping company.
Yeah.
I refuse to go work at Dairy Queen. Couldn't tell you at that moment exactly what was going through my head, but it just felt totally disassociated with who I was and how I did things. So, but I didn't have a whole lot of exposure to business ownership or entrepreneurship, or wasn't really taught a lot of that in home, and didn't have any friends that were really in that space, that no mentor figures or anything like that growing up. And then, in college, the reason I went for engineering is because my uncle went there, my dad went there. I'd heard my whole life, you have an engineering brain, you should be a mechanical engineer. I'm like, okay, I don't know what else to do. All I know is every job I've ever had, I absolutely detest. But I guess this is what I'll do. So I did the engineering thing at school took me 5 years to get my degree, because I kind of took a crap year and failed a bunch of classes and whatever, went a little crazy, but that's okay. Made it through it. But long story short, somewhere towards my senior year, I was so bored and so miserable doing engineering stuff that I kind of fell into a business model, which was we started taking down barns and selling the wood, because chip and joint gains made it really popular in that era where reclaimed barn wood was being used for everything. Stumbled into that while I was still finishing up my engineering degree. And, the first time somebody came to my dad's shed out in the country and bought $1,000 worth of old nasty wood, I was like, okay. That was way more fun than, sitting at a desk in an engineering firm or whatever to make that same amount of money in 2 weeks of whatever modeling and SolidWorks and doing drafting and whatever else. So that was the first time I got that bug, where I really saw oh, there's actually a path I could pursue potentially outside of this thing. That though my brain is very mechanical and very good at solving problems and seeing details, I detested all of my schooling from engine. I hated it. And I had 3 internships, hated every single one of them. I could not wait to be done with those 3-month internships and be done with that. So I guess I just kind of I rolled with the punches and pursued that while I was still finishing my degree. And I'm so grateful that I had that opportunity, because that ultimately turned into a business. And I never had to use my engineering degree, traditionally speaking, which is just a blessing in and of itself, because I know I would have been so miserable, because I've always been geared to, I can do it better and I can do it faster on my own, which created its own problems for me in business.
Absolutely. I'm sure it does. Yes.
Upgraded my mindset from that too, but that got me to a certain point as well.
Yeah. So it goes to that whole thing. What you did yesterday got you to today. What you do today will adjust your tomorrow. What are you going to do today that's going to make it better tomorrow? And Absolutely. That's learn and adjust and constantly pivot and make the right decisions for where you want to be. So the reclaimed wood thing, how did you kind of, obviously you said Chip and Joanna Gaines were doing their thing and it kind of got you excited about it. So did you just go out and start hunting for reclaimed wood from other people's properties, or, sending messages, collect it, or what?
It's a silly thing as it goes when you stumble into it. A buddy of mine, named Dave, he was we were in school together and we're friends, and we both liked woodworking, kind of were like in a woodworking phase because we had like a shop class together in college, which is like such a waste of money, paying whatever $2,000 for something that's just dumb. Anyway, so we're like, for some reason, I couldn't tell anybody at this point why, but for some reason we got barn wood in our head to like build some, woodworking projects out of. So I was on Craigslist and I found this dude that had a posting that was like, take down my barn and you can have the wood for free. I was like, sick. Dave, it's winter break. It's January in Minnesota. It's nice and warm out. Like, let's go disassemble this barn like piece by piece. This 150-year-old barn. He's like, sweet, let's do it. So over winter break, we did that. And that was insane in and of itself. My parents thought it was absolutely insane because it was like an hour and a half from our house. Mm-hmm. And winter and snow, and they're like, my dad was super opposed, but I didn't really care. Like at that point I was like 20 whatever 2, so I was like, as long as he's not saying no, I'm gonna do it. So we did that, and then I had too much wood because barns have lots of wood on them, way more than I needed. Yes. So then I started listing it on Craigslist, and I couldn't keep up with the calls and the emails, and that's when like the light bulb clicked. And so I went and turned that into a business, and Dave went on and did an engineering career. He was an engineer too, but he's since built a massive real estate empire too. So he did both, Yeah. He did the W-2 thing and built this huge empire where I turned it into a business and took different paths, but
Love it. So, I mean, obviously that was not the first of your money making, but the start of your at least business thinking on how you can kind of do all this. How did you kind of shift into where you're at now?
We worked that business. So Lauren and I graduated in 2014, got married in 2014, and then went full time into that business for 7 years. And it actually started on my parents' property out in the country. Mm-hmm. So there was like some contention there too. Like, and we lived with them for like 10 months and all of that. So two married couples under the same house, under the same roof, one of being the son of it was, and me running my business off there. And like my dad would come out and mingle with our customers, and it was weird. And some pretty funny stories I could tell there, but all that to say, we worked it for like 7 or 8 years. It totally burned us out because we didn't know crap. We didn't know anything about business. We didn't know anything about bookkeeping and sales and marketing. And I understood processes, but not in like a really systematic business way. So we had to learn everything from scratch. So by the time we got it to a place where we really knew what needed to happen to grow the thing, we were so burned out that we were like, we just need to be done. I'm going to go insane if I can't get away from this, because we were the business, right? It was her and I every day working a lot of hours. And, to date, I'd say one of the only regrets I have in life to date is how much energy and time we put into that business and the things that we missed out on in our 20s and in the first 5 years of our marriage because we put so much into that business. And we lost a lot of time and a lot of experiences that we could have had that other people were having in their early 20s and the first 5 years of their marriage. And, we sacrificed a lot of that to build those skills. So then fast forward 2020, we sell the thing for not a lot of money, but we were still able to sell it, which was amazing. And that catapulted us into buying some more real estate, got that snowball moving. And then like a year and a half later, we bought our current company and have been running that. And that's been an evolution of going from seller to realizing that buying and selling happens on a regular basis with small businesses. Didn't know that until we sold. Mm-hmm. So then that rolled into, I was already in the podcast world and book reading world at that point. So like naturally I found a book like Buy Then Build is the Bible for that. Read that. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is insane. We could take all the knowledge that we've built over the last 8 years and like apply it to something that's already producing a ton of income and blah, blah, blah. So that's what we did and pursued a lot of different companies, bought the current company and have been running that remotely. So, so many phase changes, so much growing and learning in the last 10 years. But it all kind of started with that first business. And my wife, when I'd get really, really frustrated at that first business, she'd always tell me, because she's like, God just continues to tell me over and over and over that this is the seed for everything else that you guys are going to do in the future. And I was like, yeah, right, whatever. I hate this. I'm so miserable. She's like, no, it's the seed. Like, we need to steward this well, because it's gonna be the seed for everything we do in the future. And frankly, it really has. As painful.
What do you know? God has plans. What do you know?
Absolutely.
They don't always meet what we desire, but he has.
They don't always happen when you want them to.
Ain't that the truth?
Yeah.
And that's, I was, as you were telling that story, I was thinking to myself, because I even wrote it down, like, you regret missing some of those things that some of the new married couples do. So I'm curious why. What is it that you feel like you missed out on?
I think a lot of it is like social stuff and traveling. Mm-hmm. Like, those are kind of the two big things. Or even like, like a lot of our friends were buying houses like in their late 20s. In our late 20s, we were like, 6 years into this business, making $70,000 a year sometimes, and working 60 to 70 hours a week, and like so committed to like growing this thing, and we saw the vision for it. Whereas like all of our other friends were like, buy a house, let's have some kids. Like, they had kids earlier than us. Before that, they were able to do a bunch of traveling because they had dual income and no kids and no responsibilities and fresh out of college, and their expenses were low, and they just like, we're making $100,000 a year with dual income. 7 years ago, that meant something. When you're young and don't have any expenses, you can take multiple trips and go see the world and do a lot of things. And I think that's a really important time for people to invest in their marriage, if possible. I mean, like, you do whatever you want, like you make it work, right? Yeah. But there's something special about those first couple of years where your life responsibilities are still very, very, very low, and your income is high relative to those responsibilities. And then as you get older, your life gets more complex. You have kids, you have responsibilities career-wise, like, things are more complicated. Sometimes that margin shrinks a little bit, right? So I think I wouldn't say that I would. I'm trying to think how I would go, if I could go back and change it, what I would do different. I'm not sure what that would be. I mean, it would have been fun to have dual income with PTO and like be able to travel for 5 years before we had kids. But it would have been nice to have kids in my mid-20s versus, I think our first, we were both 29 or almost 30. So it just changes things a little bit. But, there's a purpose in all of it, and it's, we can't change any of it. What's important is you adapt and grow from all of it and keep moving forward. There's nothing I can do about any of that, but it would have been nice,
Well, I think you think it would have been nice looking back at it now, but is there any way you'd be where you are now, being able to take your parents down to Florida and enjoy a couple months in Florida, do all this stuff, if you didn't do all that?
That's why it's, I got to remind myself not to like actually internalize the regret all that much, because I could have also gone the other direction and like been stuck in an engineering position for 7 years that I hated.
Yep.
And
just so you could have a higher income and the paid time off, and not have anything to show for it later.
Exposure, and I would have, if I did get business exposure and quit my job after 7 years, like, I'd be 7 years further down the road, having to learn all the same things. So, I mean, absolutely, from that standpoint, I wouldn't change it, because I got to learn some of those really hard lessons business-wise, like up front, and I got to. The other beautiful part about it is I got to do it with my wife too, which a lot of people, it was so funny. The amount of people that would come into our showroom and say, oh, you guys work together full time? They're like, oh, I could never do that with my husband. And we would always like say to each other after they'd leave, we're like, I think they're like married to the wrong person.
Yeah.
Like if you, I don't know, that's just really interesting to me when people would say everybody would say that, all these like middle-aged couples like building their dream home, buying our products and stuff. And they'd be like, oh, I could never work with my husband. He'd drive me crazy. Like,
I think it's the same thing though with those people that say that you can't travel with your kids, is that if you have it in your mind that you can't do that, then you won't.
You figure it out. Yeah, you solve the problem.
If you're just like, hey, this is where we're at, let's solve it. Let's make it happen, right? And then you're going to make it happen. So
we had to solve those problems. I mean, like,
of course,
I was in the business like a year and a half before Lauren joined, and when she came in, there was a huge identity and value. Like she was trying to find her worth in the company. Because I did everything, and like I was having to delegate to her and trust her, and she had to show me that she was competent in areas. So she we certainly had our head butting moments, and like she had to figure out her role, and I was readjusting to my role, and joint decision making. Like, we built a lot of interpersonal and marriage skills through that process. We always, like there's just things that we've learned how to deal with in our marriage that a lot of people don't get the opportunity to, because they never put themselves in a big enough problem or a big enough learning cycle to have to. And again, it's not a right or wrong thing. It's just it's circumstance. And we chose that path. And as a result, we had to also learn how to solve those problems and grow together in that area where now we're not only husband and wife, but we're business partners and we're strategic advisors to each other. So she's not involved at all in any of our business now, except she's a very strategic advisor because she has all the history and all the context of everything we've ever done. And all the strategic things I run through her because one, she's very prayerful and discerning about big decisions. But she also has the context of our 5-year vision, of all of our past, how we make decisions, our filters. Sometimes the filters get blurry for me, depending on the situation and the decision. And she'll be like, no, because of this filter that we've agreed to. Like, we can't do that, or that's the wrong decision because of that. So there's a tremendous amount of value going through that with her. And I would not change for the world, because we've gotten to spend more time together than most couples do. I think one time we did the math on it. Like, the amount of time we've spent together is like equal to somebody that's been married for like 50 years, because like most people are, working 2 different jobs and like whatever and this and that. Just the sheer volume of our working together, like we've spent an insane amount of time together, which we're so grateful for.
It's one of the reasons that I love homeschooling as well. While homeschooling is just can be mentally draining, and you just look at it and go, I'm the worst teacher in the world. My kids are the worst students in the world. I don't know what we're doing here. And I think about myself, go, no, that's not at all true. Like, you will get to enjoy this time teaching wherever you want, doing whatever you want. I got more time with my kids than almost any parent out there. And that's a good thing. That is a good thing to me. Like, I'm getting ready to acquire a new business, and we went and checked it out, and my son was like, "Oh, I'd love to help out with this. It's an escape room." Funny enough.
Oh, sweet.
He was like, "Oh, I'd want to do this. I want to do that." And I'm like, well, you can, because A, Daddy's going to own it, and B, we homeschool, so I can have you at the business, learning business stuff, doing all the things right here in the office with me. And what kind of lessons are you going to be able to learn from that? And then I look at you and your wife, like the amount of lessons you guys were able to learn throughout all of that together. Like you had mentioned, not being able to have all the traveling. Well, traveling doesn't teach you much about each other's ability to be able to handle stress. I mean, sometimes it does, right? Sometimes there's some stress in travel, but like the way that you guys were able to work together built a stronger foundation to now pass on to your kids and have them see that. So I want to go to the kid side of the house now to kind of understand how much conversation did you two have about kids and how, like, maybe parenting styles or non-parenting styles, or what you did or didn't want to do as parents. Did you guys have any of those conversations before you started having kids? Yeah.
I mean, I think maybe contrary to what's normal, it's always been something like marriage and parenting has always been a passion point for both of us. So yeah, we spent a lot of time before and even more now in how we want to do things, how we're coming across. Like, she's always showing me the latest like even before we had kids, she'd like, there's all these Instagram people that create these reels on like how to communicate with your kids or how to train your kids or how to whatever. And so, yeah, we spent a lot of time. And I think, you know, she had an interesting childhood too. I didn't have a bad childhood, but in answering your question and how much we talked about, I think a lot of it was driven by our childhoods.
Yes.
And also the growth oriented. We're both growth oriented. So we're like thinking of in advance, like, how are we going to do this the best versus just like, oh, we have kids now, I guess we'll kind of figure it out along the way. We're very much so like planners and forward thinkers in that. So us thinking about having kids, like she's thinking through that lens, like here's how my dad was and how it's impacted me. And similarly, I primarily was thinking through the lens of how my dad impacted us, less of how my mom impacted us and more of how my dad impacted us and what not to do, essentially, right? But it's, as I'm saying that, that's interesting because it's very much so the focus was put on how the dads were.
Yeah.
There was certainly conversation about, you know, mom did this and that let's try to avoid that. Or mom did this really well. But a lot of unfortunately, the negative stuff was dad driven, which I think is relatively common.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons I have this podcast.
Right. So, and just points out the importance of being a super intentional dad on that level.
No, I completely agree. And that's where, you know, again, you're either running towards or running away from what you saw, right? And sometimes a little bit of both. But it's one of those that if you take the time to think back and say, okay, what was it that was good? What was it that was bad? Why was it good? Why was it bad? How can I make this a better environment for my kids? And, you know, being a good dad, being a good parent is difficult. It takes energy to think about how to do this well. Being a bad dad, being a bad parent, super easy. Super easy. All right. If all you think your requirement is to put a roof over your head and food on the table, then good luck with you.
Pretty
right?
easy.
Well, that's a pretty easy existence at that point. But it's not. It's way more involved than that. So
absolutely.
So I mean, it's
the level of intentionality that it takes to, you know, like for example, my wife we're very particular about how we start to build patterns in what we say for repeat offenses, particularly from our 5-year-old. And not because we're like crazy and psychotic and like everything has to be perfect, but it's like once you build the right pattern, then that will perpetuate forward, and then it takes less effort. So like she'll, you know, like I'll say something to Genevieve and Lauren will be like, let's say it this way. And I'll be like, oh, that's right. Okay. Change my tone and approach it this way. Like the amount of mental energy that it takes in the moment where you're frustrated and feeling impatient and they've like done the thing again for the 100th time. And you're like, oh, I just want to rip your head off. Like, and you're like, but like the internal control that it takes and mental energy to like pull those emotions down and remind yourself this is the healthy way to respond to this versus react to it is immense. And like, I don't know, it's the continuous challenge and is unreasonably exhausting every day to like show up with that intentionality. And we definitely don't get it right every day or every week in every situation, but we've seen that ripple forward now, like outputting that energy day after day after day to the best of our ability. And this is why, back to your point, like God, wife, kids, like if those first two are out of line, like you don't have the margin to give to your kids, like that best version of yourself. That's why that's so important to keep it in that order. But we've seen that ripple forward and like how they've grown and how we've grown and our ability to communicate and solve problems with our 5-year-old, that like Lauren's parents will be like, I just can't even get over how smart she is and how emotionally intelligent she is. And we're like, yes, all the work,
success, it feels so
off.
good.
Right. But
I remember We got similar compliments, which always feels good because you feel like you're doing terrible when it's happening.
Absolutely.
Right? And it's just like, golly, I'm failing so miserably at this.
Yeah.
And then we had a compliment from a friend of ours where she was like, her kids were getting ready to have kids, and she looked at us and said, whatever they are doing, just do exactly what they did with their kids, because their kids are this, their kids are that.
Yeah.
And I think to myself, man, oh, thank you. Like, it feels good to hear that, because like, I am challenged by it. I do want to do better. I do want things to go better. And you know, my kids are perfectionists because I'm a perfectionist, and I don't have the perfect kids yet. So it's like, you know. But
I think it's funny. It's funny too, because like, you know, like we've all been in the store and we've seen the kid freak out, and it's interesting. This might not be a popular opinion, but I'm of the opinion that kids' behavior is a direct reflection of the parents' emotional intelligence.
Okay.
Because when you model and teach emotional intelligence, your kids follow suit. Like, your kids are a sponge to what you model. You know, like we've all heard that, like I can't think of there's whatever, a lot of, I feel like a lot of like quotes around like they do what you do, not what you say, or you know, they whatever, you know what I'm saying.
More things are caught than taught. Like they're seeing
all those things. Like you are emulating behavior and expectations and emotional intelligence and intentionality to them, and they will pick up on so much of that through emulation. And a lot of kids' behavior, I think, is a reflection on the capacity of the parent. And so I say that to say it's so important as an individual, as an adult, and again, my opinion, to be working on yourself as much as you are working on your kids. Because as you work on yourself and you become better, you become more self-aware, you become more emotionally intelligent, you exercise and build the muscle of patience and self-control. Now you're emulating and you're able to model that to your kids, instead of like, you know, they make a mess, they mess up, whatever, and you like lose your cool all the time. Like, what is that emulating to them? Like, oh, when something doesn't go the way you want, it's okay to lose your cool and freak out and yell, versus the other way around. And so that's a continual thing for me, for sure. Lauren is much more like, and for me, I'm just like, I'm a lot more, I have to catch myself to respond versus react. And like Lauren pounds that into me all the time. Like, that was a reaction, not a response. I'm like, dang, okay.
I love talking about response versus react all the time. Like, it's a subtle shift, but it's a subtle shift that you're using your brain instead of you know, you're actually thinking about what you're doing.
One's automatic and one's intentional.
Yes. Yep. Very much agreed. Yeah, it's a difficult boundary to go. You know, I think about it, boundaries, that if your kids don't have boundaries and understand what a left and right is, they're constantly going to be going left and right hardcore. And it may end up, like you said, on aisle 14 at Walmart. And before you know it, aisle 14 at Walmart becomes temper tantrum central. And you're stuck having to deal with temper tantrum central because you didn't even set boundaries to begin with. And I'm not saying that if you set boundaries, because there's no perfect kid, there's no perfect parent. Your kids
are still going to have tantrums no matter what.
Still going to have problems, right? But you can shrink that down a lot by having those boundaries, having a good structure inside of the house. And it's one of those that, you know, you'd mentioned that you and your wife both looked at your dads to help kind of model where you wanted to be as parents. And, you know, it's again, that's why I do this podcast. Having a good dad and a good mom at home. Let's just get rid of the word good. Having a mom and dad that are at home already eliminates a ton of problems for the kids.
Absolutely.
Right? You may not even be a good mom and a good dad. But just having two parents home makes a huge difference for the kids. And then you add on the fact that they're good, intentional parents. Gracious. Like, you know, I was listening to go back to Tom Bilyeu. Tom Bilyeu talks about how he's very much a hardcore determinist, right? Like everything is the way it is because of what happened yesterday. And it will always, there's no way you can change your decision. Like, you can't. And so he recommended this book. I was listening to him recently, and he was, I forgot the name of the book. I listened to like half of it while I was mowing the lawn. Yeah. And it was, to me, such garbage. Because Tom Bilyeu's a rather smart dude, right? Yeah. And, you listen to him and you're like, okay, well, let me just kind of understand where it comes from, because I'm not a determinist type of guy. Yeah. I think we all have we truly have our ability to change where we're at based on our decisions that we make today. Yeah. And the argument in the book is basically like, you don't even choose whether or not to move your finger. Your brain is doing all the stuff to do all the things. And I'm like, well, who controls the brain then, right? And so, and they go through all of these different things about, different scientific tests and all these things. And to me, it's all influence, not determinist, right? So we get to influence our kids' lives. We don't determine their lives. They're going to make their own decisions that are going to influence their outcome as well. And we get to, but the more interaction we have, the more ability we have as couples to get together, make the right decisions together, or what we believe right now is the right decision, and not hold on to that like it's the only decision you can make. Be okay letting go of what you thought was right, because you have new inputs that come in and teach you that it wasn't. Yeah. And be flexible in that, and be like, I used to think that spanking my kid's butt made a lot of sense. Sometimes I think it might still make sense, but there are times where I looked at it, like one of the times that it really slapped me in the face, figuratively speaking, is my son had hit me at a young age, and I spanked him in the bottom and told him, you absolutely will not do that, right? Mm-hmm. And then I looked at it and I said, what did I just do? I just hit my kid as a punishment for hitting me, and then I just had to sit there and go, I need to reanalyze how I'm looking at this, right? Yeah. Like, because I had to, like, new data input came in my brain, and I changed what my thought process was. Like, how do I want to look at this? Yeah. And it's that ability to have, and I had to sit down and talk with my wife that night. I was like, I don't know what to do. Like, I'm at an impasse in my brain that we need to figure out. Yeah. And that, I think, is part of being a good parent, is realizing where you need to make those adjustments, or where you don't need to make adjustments, and how you can, what you need to do, what you don't need, all the stuff.
Yeah, and drilling down on that deeper, what that makes me think of is like, I love what you're saying, because we don't have it all perfect from day one. Yes. Like, you're kind of figuring it out, but the goal is to like get better every day, right? And presenting that as soon as your kids, I think, our 1.5-year-old isn't there yet, but our 5-year-old is very smart and very observant, and she now has the cognitive ability to like adjust with those changes with us. Like, we change the way we parent, or we modify a consequence structure or whatever. Like, she's able to adapt to that. And I think that's important to build for us. It's important to build that into our culture. Like, we're not perfect. We're not perfect parents. We're not perfect individuals, but we're always striving to do better. And we're not afraid to apologize and correct it. Like, the other day, I went and got my 5-year-old, and I was like, hey, baby, like, Daddo just wants to apologize for, I was really impatient with you. Remember yesterday when I said XYZ when we were doing this and that, and Daddo was feeling frustrated, and Daddo was feeling overwhelmed. And because of that, I was really impatient. Yeah. And will you forgive me? I'm sorry. And she's like, yeah, Daddo, I forgive you. And we hug, and like exposing that vulnerability of like, I'm not perfect. Like, I'm still learning and I'm still growing, but here's how we handle that imperfection. We're apologizing, we're talking about it, we're calling it what it is, and then adapting along the way so that way they can see that process modeled. And that was never modeled for me. And that, like, going back to parenthood or my parents, like with my dad, like the apology cycle would look like, Dad did something that hurt me. I would go to Mom and tell Mom. Mom would talk to Dad. Dad would never talk to me. Mom would say, Dad's sorry. And then Dad and I would never talk, and it would just go away.
Well, it wouldn't go away, but you want to talk about it anymore.
Yeah. Well, fair point. Yeah. It just stacks up, right? But like, immediately you're building disconnect there, because now I can't, like, you lose trust, you lose intimacy and connection, because that forgiveness, that it was never addressed. It was never talked about. Like, Dad never said to me, I'm imperfect, I screwed up, please forgive me. So it's impossible to have tight, deep relationship when, that figure in your life never goes through that cycle. And so that's one that, like, kind of I'm a little bit bunny trailed now, but kind of to your point of adapting and growing through that stuff. I spent a lot of time thinking about that in my relationship with my oldest, is like, how do I safely but vulnerably, like, expose her to that process so she can see that I'm growing too. Like, though I'm correcting her a lot, like, I need to be corrected a lot too. Like, I make mistakes too. And that's okay. It's okay we say that all the time. It's okay to be angry, but when you're angry, you still need to make good choices.
Yeah.
It's okay to make mistakes, but when you do make mistakes, we need to apologize and do better, commit to do better.
I told my son, like, you're allowed to be angry, but you're not allowed to act out in it. Emotions are okay. Actions are not. You don't act out in those emotions.
Yep.
So,
Absolutely.
So when it comes to the business side of the house, what are your thoughts? What are you and your wife kind of discussing as far as, like, maybe including your kids in business later on?
Yeah.
Do you guys talk about the business with, obviously your 1.5-year-old, there's very little conversation I'm sure happening there. My 2-year-old is still yet to put in the effort for the business side of the house. She's just kind of just hanging around, not trying to figure it out yet. But what are your guys' thoughts on how you guys discuss what you guys do and, what business means for the family?
Yeah, I'm glad you bring that up, because I wrote down here, I wanted to circle back to, like, the homeschooling stuff when you were talking about that earlier. Like, all the homeschooling and the business and culture of our family, like, all kind of flows together. At least we're thinking that we want it to flow together, because Genevieve will start some schooling come this fall and whatnot. So Lauren has kind of started dabbling with school a little bit, but it'll be this fall that she'll really start. And, there's a myriad of reasons why we want to homeschool, but a big part of it for me is the exposure aspect. It's like, if I have the luxury, and I really think of homeschooling in today's day and age in society, seemingly, and the quality of schools and some of the crazy stuff that's going on, the exposure there. If I have the luxury to not be bound to a 9-to-5 in an office away from my kids, and I have the luxury of my wife being able to run our household, like, I'd be silly to not custom make and tailor the exposures that they get in life, especially in these formative years when they're really young and they're building their filters and the infrastructure of how they make decisions and what they value. Maybe it's strong to say, but I'd say if I have the ability and the resources and the freedom to do it, it'd almost be bad stewardship or irresponsible to not customize the education process for them to set them up the best they can for whatever. I mean, if they want to go be a doctor or a construction worker or whatever they want, I don't place any value on that. But you sure as heck know I'm going to teach them all the skills that they need to be hyper successful in whatever they do. Not for the sake of success, but for the sake of stewardship and growth, right? Mm-hmm. If I can put those values into them at a very base age and teach them how to be all the things we talked about, the emotionally intelligent and self-aware and good steward and responsible and communicate super well. Like, one of the reasons I feel like when I'm talking, like, to a business or a client, like, I perceive that I'm very well communicated. One of the reasons for that is because I listened to my dad solve huge problems at IBM at his home office all day long. Like, he'd be on these conference calls, like leading these conference calls, and I'd hear the language he would use to solve those problems and interact with those teams. And, if I'm out of the house, at an exterior office doing something else, like, my kids don't get exposure to that. Like, we bring our kids to the bank with us for closing, and we bring them to our investment properties. We bring them on due diligence. We bring them to Idaho to see the street sweepers, because the goal is to expand their brains as rapidly as we can with the most valuable experiences as possible. Because I don't know if you've ever noticed this if you travel with your kids, but we've noticed, we started traveling with Genevieve at a really young age, but we noticed every time we went on a trip, when we came back, it's like she advanced like 6 to 12 months cognitively. The week or two after getting back, it's like, boom, like all of a sudden she can say all these new words or do all these new things. There's like so much more cognitively sharp. And the reason I say that is that it's like exposure therapy in ways. Like we took her out of her micro environment, which is our house that we live in, the 2 parks that we go to all the time. And we put her in a place where literally everything is new. The smells, the sights, the temperature, the greenery, the house, everything is different. The food's different. The people are different. And when we're put in those environments, we're forced to grow, right? You're forced to adapt all of a sudden. And then when you go back to your safe environment, like you go back with those new skills that you built through that exposure. So a big part of homeschool for us is really like exposure therapy. Like expose them to everything that I'm doing on the business and money side of things. Not because I want my kids to be like billionaire tech tycoons that go start the next Facebook, but because those are real skills that apply in real life.
Yes.
Whether you own a business or you're a W-2 employee or you're a stay-at-home mom. Like there's so many things that we learn between 20 and 30 that we should have been taught between like 8 and 18 that were never taught in the public school system. Like, I don't know about you, but I never learned about anything money oriented in school or insurance or the medical process or how to get a loan or how to pay my taxes or any of the productive things that we just had, like that make you a smart, productive person. Like you don't learn any of that. So we love the idea of being able to give that exposure really early on and then see how that compounds. You like fast forward 10 years into their adult life, like all of that foundation that we expose them to, how much faster will it ripple forward and compound and accelerate their life in adulthood. But additionally, like, I mean, there's so many layers of the homeschool thing that we love, like the freedoms are amazing to spend time together, but to go travel together and make these experiences and memories together that otherwise would be kind of restricted, right? Like the reason we build our life the way we do is for the sake of spending more time with our kids and creating more memories and experiences. Like the reason we have remote teams is so that way we can be geographically free and go to Florida in the winter and bring our kids with us versus, hey, we can't actually do that because like they're in school and blah, blah, blah. And again, it's not a right or wrong, but it's such a blessing to be in America where you can architect your life and your kid's life as much as you want. And that's an amazing luxury to have.
Completely agreed. And it's one of those build your business around your family, not your family around your business. Like what life do you want?
Lifestyle
build your business
design
around that. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
And maybe that means you're not going to make as much income.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have the lifestyle you want still?
But that might not
maybe
be what
that
you
means
want.
you might not want $7 million a year coming in. You may be fine with $150,000 a year coming in. Who knows? Like what is it that your lifestyle desires, right?
Exactly.
I look
so important for people to, like, I don't know. For me, I'm curious. I'd be so curious to do like a survey on this. It'd be so interesting to see the info. But like when you're at the beginning of your entrepreneurial, at least for me, my journey, I'm curious what yours is. Beginning of my entrepreneurial journey, like early 20s and like doing this business and getting into real estate, like the first 10 years I wanted to shoot for the freaking moon. Like I'm going to be a billionaire. Like we're going to grow this company. So, and like, I don't know why that was stuck in my head, but then when I had kids, it flipped. And it's like, how much money do I need to create the life that I want to live with them?
Yeah.
Because like, there's always this conversation, at least in the GoBundance circle, of like, when's enough?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a believer that you should always be growing, but once you get to a certain point, there's such diminishing return when it comes to income, as long as you've created the life and the ability to create the experiences you want with your family, I think. And it's not as big of a number as I think people maybe think it is.
Yeah, I especially when you look at the kids themselves, like, because they don't get the return on the capital, they get the return on the time, right?
Absolutely.
And it's one of those. So there's a couple. He used to be in GoBundance, and he's no longer anymore. But they're the Shin Paws, and they've got their own YouTube channel, and they have a family. They're like, because we want to live life today, right? And not so they have been on the road in their RV for I think 9 years now.
Wow, that's amazing.
And with their 2 kids, like their oldest just graduated high school. They started when he was 9 years old. He just graduated high school, and they love it because they're spending time today doing what they want to do. Yeah. So that looks different for what they're doing in their life because they built their lifestyle and then had their business go around it. And it was one of those, like, what a blessing to be able to just do that. And like, who's to say you can't become a billionaire when you're 50, right? And the kids are out of the house.
Like, what else do I have to do?
Like, if I become a billionaire, or if I become a, centimillionaire even at 35 or 40, I guarantee my kids have lost a whole lot of me in that time to grow that. So, it's okay to have a shrunk down lifestyle now to spend more time with my kids, to then grow it later when they're out of the house. And then my wife and I can just crush it as a team and go through it. Be intentional about where you're at in all aspects of your life. Again, that's one of the reasons I like GoBundance is we're not just looking at how much money what your bank account is and, how much income you have and all the stuff. So,
man, I think I love all of that so much because there's a cost associated with everything, right? And so you can say, I want to be a billionaire, but what you really have to do is you have to like get out a piece of paper and write out what is the cost to attaining that.
Yeah.
And so much of the cost in like the early part of your life, like 20s to 40, it's like so kid oriented. So what do you pay? You pay with the time with your kids, kind of exactly what you were saying. And we've had to have some of those conversations too. Like, here's an opportunity in front of us. Are we willing to pay the cost to take it? Mm-hmm. And we've said no to a lot of things because it's like, I'm not willing to pay the time that it would take, the 80-hour weeks that it would take, not avoiding, but neglecting my kids and missing out. Like when we bought this company out in Idaho, one of the hardest things to date that I've ever done, emotionally speaking, is being out there by myself for like little over 2 months. When I have this beautiful family, beautiful wife, and 2-year-old curly blonde-haired girl who is just like the best thing ever. And I have to go out to rural Idaho for 2 months in a place I don't like the scenery, I didn't like the people, and I just worked 12 hours a day every day for 2 months. And I missed all of that time. Yeah. And like there's still times where I'm like taking my nightly shower and that like hits my brain and I just cry because I'm like, man, and like I paid for that opportunity with 2.5 months of being away from my daughter. Yep. And that like breaks my heart anytime. Even like right now, I'm just like, it just breaks my heart thinking about that because they grow so fast that it's especially I'm never going to get that 2.5 months back. And that's the prime for me. That's the prime time between like 1.5 and 3.5. That's the prime time, man. They're just so fun but
it's difficult though, because you do have to look at it and say, okay, well, I need to be a good steward of my family, but also part of that means I need to grow a business. So that means I need to show them what it means to work and show them all the stuff. And it's sacrifices we have to make to be able to do all of that. I completely understand where you're at. I think we mentioned it a little bit on the Delegate That podcast, but being a military guy, I mean, like my son's first birthday, I was deployed to Africa and had to do it on an iPad, right? And like, okay, happy birthday, buddy, and look at his mullet because I didn't want him to get this first haircut until I was there. I wanted to be there for his first haircut, so he looks ridiculous, and he's got all this cake all over his face. And I mean, it was one of those that, of course, it broke my heart, right? Same thing, like saying goodbye to him. I remember one day saying goodbye to them in Japan. So I was deploying to Thailand. My wife had to go back to the States for work. So she was bringing my son with her And I was saying goodbye in the airport. She was taking my son to give to my parents, so my parents could take care of him in the States while she was working, and then she was going to bring him back. And I'm just looking at this going, like, what am I doing here? Like, what's happening? Like, I'm saying goodbye to my son for an unknown period of time, at least 3 months. I knew I was going to be gone at least 3 months. So it's like, all right, well, now what? You know, I get to FaceTime my kid again and do all the stuff. And it's like, this is not where it needs to be. And that's one of the reasons I started this podcast is I saw dads doing the same thing in business. You know, like they may not have been going to the other side of the world because the government sent them there, but they might as well have been because they've been in their office for the last 16 hours that they're quote unquote building a business for their kids.
Absolutely.
And it's like, nah, man, like it's not how it goes. So
absolutely. And I find myself in this season of life, the last year or so, being more grateful than I've ever been. And a big part of that is because we live in an era technologically and in a country economically and socially where the only reason that you would be trapped in that is because of your choice in a lot of ways. Like if you have a big career and you're spending that many hours in your office and doing really well financially, like you're making that choice. But there are so many options where you can spin that and completely restructure the way you do your life. And it's such a luxury and a blessing to do that. And I keep saying that over and over because it is a luxury and a blessing to have the skills, the options, the money, the resources available to us where we live and in this era with technology and virtual assistants and the ability to buy companies and SBA financing and real estate. And like, there's so many options now where you can design your lifestyle to spend that time with your kids, to spend that time with your wife, to make that impact. You don't have to spend 70 hours a week in the office anymore. If you're doing that, it's probably because one, you like it and you don't want to be with your family, or you haven't built the skill of delegation yet. Right. Yeah. And like those skills can be built and you putting in that work then massively, I'm convinced, helps, impacts your family, especially when your kids are in that young age. Like being able to see dad on a regular basis and see dad love mom, on a regular basis and have those interactions and have that build that relationship and emulate those values is like it's the most important thing that you can do because it's multiplied because if you have multiple kids, it's multiplied. That effort, that input impacts so many people, and then they will impact so many people and so many people and so on and so forth. And I think that's the highest calling of a man and a husband is to steward their family well.
Completely agreed.
And everything else is below that on the stewardship scale. And that's very biblically sound too. Like if a man can't manage his house, like he's not qualified to manage anything else.
Yeah. No.
And
I love it.
Yeah, man, it's good stuff. That's so important.
A great spot to wrap it up and just say, look, be a good steward of your family. Be a good steward of the resources that you've been blessed with. Whether you are a Christian, whether you believe in God or not, those kids are a blessing upon you. And your duty is to raise them well, to be a blessing on this world, right? So obviously I would encourage all of you guys to be Christians. But even if you're not, you can look at this and go, yeah, you're right. I do have a responsibility to raise these kids well. My boys know that my goal is to make them to be better, raise them to be better men than me. And that should be all of our goals. Like help our kids. Again, like you said, we're on a foundation that our parents gave us. We built upon that to give a better foundation for our kids. Let them continue to build that up, and not go shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations like a lot of them do. So let's keep it growing. But Brad, this was absolutely awesome getting to chat with you some more. I wish that I didn't have to go put my little lady down to bed right when this started. We'd had an extra 20 minutes to be able to chat here. But I thank you so very much for jumping on. If folks are hearing you and they want to know more about what you do, they want to connect with you for one reason or another, what is the best way for folks to get a hold of you?
Like I probably said on the other one, I'm not much of a social media guy. So if people want to reach out to me, you can reach out to Mr. Adam here and he can connect us. But I'm always happy to always happy to have the deeper conversations. That's where the fun stuff is, and that's where we all grow the most, right? So I really appreciate the conversation, an opportunity. I could talk about this stuff all day, every day. That's basically all my wife and I talk about is this stuff. So
good. Yeah, well, my wife retiring, maybe I'll have to do a Biz Mom podcast and have her start to interview moms and get that rolling. That'd be fun.
Killer. You should seriously do that. My wife would love that. Yeah,
that'd be a lot of fun.
We should jive. We should connect on that. That'd be killer.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, she's got 2.5 weeks, so she retires as the recording of this podcast. So,
all right,
buddy.
Stay tuned, everybody. Here we go.
Let's see what we can do. But Brad, thank you so very much for jumping on. Everybody listening, I appreciate it. I mean, we're an hour and 45 minutes into this, so if you're still hanging out, thank you. What a wonderful conversation it was. Thank you for going deep, Brad, and being willing to be vulnerable and chat a lot. And thank you, everybody, for listening. Please comment below. Let us know what your favorite part was. If you're watching it on video, then go into YouTube, like, subscribe, all of that. It is always better in video, so jump over to the YouTube side of the house and be able to see the facial expressions and all the craziness that we have going on, and of course all my Patriot stuff over my head. But I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your week. Thank you again, Brad. Thank you, everybody. We'll see everybody on the next show.
Thanks, Adam.
Thank you so much for listening to the BizDad Podcast. We hope you found some value in your time here with us, and we look forward to bringing you the next episode. If you've enjoyed today's show, please subscribe and share so you and your friends won't miss our upcoming episodes. Connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Rumble, where we continue these discussions and share more valuable content. Be the dad you know you need to be and run your business in a way you're proud to share with your kids. Keep crushing it.